good evening and welcome to Best First Review 360, where we bring you a roundup of this week's top business stories and developments that impact the economy. I'm Joel Outscoon. We kick off this week's edition with a reality check on the confidence levels of the corporate sector in the new coalition government's economic policies and growth plans. Let's have a look.
The poll asked how focused is the government on creating policies that support private sector growth. The results showed a lot of pessimism, with 47% of respondents giving a score of 3 out of 5, with 1 being the lowest and 5 being the highest. 36% scored 1 or 2, and only 15% scored a 4 or 5. This reflected the wider feelings of confusion and uncertainty among the private sector on the government's economic policy plans. The second question was, how successful has the government been in actioning such policy changes in the last 1 year? A majority 49% scored a low 2 out of 5, indicating strong disappointment in the progress of reform in the first year of the government's term. Interestingly, however, top executives were a bit more optimistic about the future, but uncertainty was a continued reflection. On the question of how confident the audience was about the capacity of the government to deliver its economic promises in the next 4 years, 41% scored a 4 or a 5, while 35% scored a moderate 3 out of 5. A quarter of respondents were still pessimistic, scoring a 1 or 2.
Premier Ranil Wickremesinghe's visit to China has helped revive Chinese investments and opportunities for trade.
Chinese firms eyeing the Hambantota port development have indicated interest in setting up tin fish processing plants and gem and jewelry enterprises in the special industrial zone proposed for Chinese ventures at the Hambantota port. A delegation led by Premier Ranil Wickremesinghe was in China to explore investment opportunities in Sri Lanka. The Prime Minister's office said China's Chongqing Foreign Trade and Economic Cooperation Company has shown interest in developing Hambantota. China is in talks with the government of Sri Lanka to secure a 15,000-acre land in Hambantota to set up a special investment zone.
In business overseas, the economist retains Melbourne for the 6th straight year as the most livable city out of 140 surveyed.
According to The Economist's Intelligence Unit's Global Livability Ranking, which ranks 140 cities on 5 lifestyle categories, 6 of the top 10 livable cities in the world happen to be in Australia and Canada. For the 6th year in a row, Melbourne topped the list, with Vietnam ranking 2nd and Vancouver 3rd, Toronto, Calgary, Adelaide and Perth made up the top 7. The cities were ranked on stability, healthcare and environment, education and infrastructure. Cost of living was not taken into consideration. Cities that topped the list were located in wealthy countries, had good wealth, good health and education systems, good quality infrastructure and low population densities.
India urges genuine debate to counter misinformation against proposed trade deals between the two neighbors. That's coming up after this break. Welcome back. You're with Best First Review 360. I'm Joel Outscoon. Indian High Commissioner to Sri Lanka Y.K. Singh says propaganda against efforts to forge closer ties between India and Sri Lanka needs to be countered.
India's envoy to Sri Lanka, Y.K. Singh, delivering his speech at India's 70th Independence Day celebrations in Colombo, said disinformation against economic ties between the two neighbors need to be countered.
Despite what people are spreading in terms of misinformation and outright lies, I think it's important to remember that the two governments and the two peoples will forge a relationship at a pace with which Sri Lanka is comfortable with. Just last month, the Honorable Prime Minister of Sri Lanka launched the pre-emergency ambulance service from the iconic Golf Face Green in Colombo. You will recall that the naysayers, the doubters, the extremists have been questioning this pure act of a humanitarian gift. The Government of India and the Prime Minister of India in particular had agreed to give $7.55 billion as a grant so that this service could be operated.
Urging the Sri Lankan business community to capitalize on the close proximity of the Indian market, Singh has said economic ties have taken center stage in India's renewed engagement with the world under the Modi government.
And it's important that we look at Sri Lanka availing of the opportunity of sitting so close to India and availing of the dynamic progress that India has achieved over the last few years. Currently, we grow at about 7.5% in our GDP, and it's forecast that we will touch 8% very shortly. India is the largest emerging big economy in the world today, and growing at the fastest rate. And I think Sri Lanka's unique position offers it an opportunity to plug in to the supply and value chains in India so that the Sri Lankan economy and the Sri Lankan people benefit. After all, this is what the Honorable Prime Minister has said, that in his Neighbourhood First policy, that we must share our growth story with our immediate neighbours. We will grow if our neighbours will grow, and our neighbours will grow once we grow.
The High Commissioner said that India aims to further economic engagements with Sri Lanka with the proposed trade agreements.
On the economic side, our relationship has grown from strength to strength. Our bilateral trade is likely to touch $5 billion shortly, and our imports and exports to Sri Lanka have increased. When Prime Minister Wickremesinghe visited India last year, he proposed a new agreement to take our economic and commercial relationship to the next level, to encompass investments, services, and technology cooperation. I am happy to tell you that the first round of negotiations concluded earlier this month in Sri Lanka, and we look forward to continuing these discussions so that we come up with an agreement which is mutually beneficial and which will be a win-win situation for all.
How relevant is ASEAN for Sri Lanka? Will there be opportunities for trade and tourism?
The Bandaranayake Centre for International Studies hosted a seminar on Sri Lankan-Indonesian relations and the Asia community to assess the relevance of ASEAN for Sri Lanka and to explore opportunities in trade and tourism. Here are some of the highlights.
If you look at the ASEAN nations, they sit right at the heart of the convergence of the Indian and the Pacific Oceans. And some scholars say the Indian Pacific Oceans is the heart of the world's interstate of global trade. So if the Indian Pacific Ocean is the interstate, ASEAN is the intersection of that region. So that is why we are very excited.
Over the last decade or so, there is so much room for further improvement. On that note, with the ASEAN community as the backdrop and considering Indonesia as the largest economy in the region, we are looking at an environment that's filled with opportunities and challenges.
In terms of distance, we are quite close, not that far. So I'm wondering why the relationship between ASEAN and Sri Lanka is not as close as our distance. With total GDP growth, we are approaching 2.5 trillion now. Put ASEAN as the 7th largest economy in the world. It is projected to become number 4 by 2030.
Which means the power of economy in this area should not be underestimated. We are coming from leisure industry and we have seen how the economic power has shifted from Europe to Asia. How a country like Sri Lanka has to adjust its marketing strategies to face the new emerging traveler coming from Asia as opposed to traditional European traveler which may have find difficult in being able to come to Sri Lanka. So we have seen as this economic power has been actually something which is significant, and ASEAN role is something very, very important that is coming through. The ASEAN is one of the most open economies in the region, and in terms of merchandise export is over 1.2 trillion. That is something which also we have drawn down where ASEAN is concerned. And also the ASEAN economic community is founded on 4 basic principles, something we have to take a view on it, which basically is creating a single market and production base, increasing competitiveness, promoting equitable economic development, and further integrating ASEAN with the global economy.
And also improving air connectivity, further invigorate people-to-people contacts, which will also promote trade. When you promote the people-to-people contacts, then we come to know each other. That will pave the way for the trade cooperation as well. So that's a good area, that's an important area to promote people-to-people contacts between the two countries. And thanks to the government of Indonesia for liberalizing the visa for Sri Lankans, because they get the on-arrival visa. There is a lot of traffic to Indonesia, and then so that will be also a good decision, a good gesture in this direction to promote people-to-people contact between the two countries.
Welcome back. You're watching Best First Review 360. In many East Asian countries, foreign direct investments have played a major role in boosting exports. Today on Speak Your Mind, we feature economist Premachandra Athukorala, an expert in the field of global production sharing. Athukorala was hosted by Advocata, an independent think tank, to talk about foreign direct investments and manufacturing for exports, emerging global patterns and opportunities for Sri Lanka.
Labor is the only resource owned by the poor. Therefore, you can't start at the top end. You can't think about producing high-flown machinery and other things using capital. Then you are going to bypass the labor. You need to generate employment. To generate employment, you have to specialize in areas where the country has competitive advantage to generate employment opportunities. This is how Malaysia, Singapore, Thailand, now Vietnam, these countries have been eradicating poverty. We can't ignore economic globalization. We have the option of becoming either Burma or becoming Singapore. These are the two polar alternatives. There is no in-between house. We cannot generate development on our own in a tiny dot in the world. Even some ministers say that we have to bypass manufacturing. We have to focus on tourism and other areas. Some people talk about high-tech electronics services and other areas. These are not mutually exclusive things. But considering our initial conditions, we need manufacturing. Manufacturing has the advantage of absorbing unskilled workers. There's no other production sector in the world which can absorb unskilled workers and train them on the job. That's why India has made it main policy objective of promoting manufacturing. There are various types of capital flows coming to the country, but foreign investment is unique in the sense that always it comes as a bundle. When a foreign investor, which we call a multinational enterprise, come to a given country, it has a long-term objective of creating profit. Of course, it is not a charitable organization, creating profits for it, the company, by undertaking production in the country. Therefore, foreign investment comes as a package. It is not only capital, together with that come managerial know-how, marketing linkages, and so on. This is the reason why we need foreign investment to link the country to global production system. The package brought by the foreign firm is vital for this purpose. We are not ignoring domestic entrepreneurs. The lesson from other countries, including Japan or any other country which has come to the developed stages in the world, always rely on foreign capital and foreign technology. There are two types of foreign investment. The first type is called market-seeking foreign direct investment. multinationals come into a country to set up production plants in order to produce for the domestic market. Like Nestle coming to Sri Lanka and set up a factory to produce various food items and other things for the domestic market. Secondly, we have efficiency seeking foreign direct investment. We can also call it export-oriented foreign investment. Foreign investment which is driven by the motive of achieving efficiency in order to produce for the global market. Now, out of the two types, actually, market-seeking investment is losing its position in the global economy simply because countries have become more and more open to trade and investment. Say, before 1977, foreign direct investment in Sri Lanka was basically market-oriented, market-seeking type. But over time, composition of foreign investment has shifted towards efficiency-seeking type. Now, this has been a hallmark of economic development in dynamic East Asian economies. When it comes to efficiency-seeking investment, from policy point of view, it is very important to keep it in mind. It is not homogeneous phenomena. There are two fundamental distinctive types of efficiency-seeking investment. Firstly, you have conventional manufacturing, economists call it horizontal specialization type manufacturing, under which the entire production process from beginning to end take place in a given country. One prominent example is domestic resource-based manufacturing. Say, carbon black produced in Sri Lanka by Hales is a typical example. Using local raw material, you produce the good from beginning to end in the location and export. Again, in tire industry, we know that there's a major global tire producer here producing heavy-duty tires. They account for about 18% of total world production of these tires. This company belongs to this category. Then we have global production sharing type activity. Now, this has been the dynamic form of economic globalization over the last 3 decades. It is simply splitting of the production process into discrete tasks which are located in individual countries based on the relative cost competitiveness. This form of foreign direct investment has been the prime mover or the driving force of modern day efficiency-seeking investment. Nike Flyknit shoe collection. This is the latest addition to shoe market in the world, the lightest shoe produced in the world. Now, this product is assembled in Vietnam, but it is not a product produced in Vietnam. At least 5 countries take part in producing this shoe. It is designed and marketed worldwide by Nike, the famous US company. The machine for the seamless knitting of the that means upper part of the shoe, was designed and produced by a German company. They spent 3 years under the guidance of Nike to design this machine. Then ultralight performance fabric for making the upper is produced by Trisha Fabric, a US company, using recycled material. The most high-tech part in the shoe is the upper. Upper is knitted by Mars Technological Park located in Tulhiriya in Sri Lanka. And the rubber sole is produced and the shoe is assembled in Vietnam, right? at least 5 countries are participated in the process, including a well-known Sri Lankan company. The computer I am using to deliver the lecture is not produced in one country. At least 60 countries take part in producing this computer. But I am talking about one component of the computer, which is hard disk drive. Hard disk drive is assembled in Bangkok, Thailand. Out of total hard disk drive production in the world, 70% take place in Bangkok. But Thailand is not the only country which participates in the production. See the number of countries which supply component to produce the hard disk drive. It is very fine-tuned specialization, right? Hard disk drive export from Thailand accounted for almost 19 billion US dollar in the latest year, for which I have data. This accounts for 15% of total manufacturing export from Thailand, and 70% of hard disk drive assembly is done by Thailand.
Well, that's all the news we got for you tonight. You can look us up on Facebook by typing Best First Review 360. Enjoy the weekend and do join us next Friday, same time. I'm Joel Outskun. Good night.